In this video, we'll see how to create categories for the transactions. So we'll create a new feature and we'll name it as categories. And each transaction will have a category now. So we have seen in the last video that we have added a model, category model, and we already have a table in the database. So, so let's get started and let's create a category controller. So we'll start by creating a category controller. So we'll keep separate controllers for each of the feature. Like we'll have a Java class here called as a category controller. Okay. So we have a category controller here. So now let's add a service that will be a category service. So we'll have a category service, category service. Okay. Okay, and then again we'll have a category repository. So it will be an interface. Category repository. Okay, and we should select an interface for it. Okay. So we have all these three files. We have created different files for the different feature. Okay, now let's go to the repository and add some code here, and we'll paste the code here. Okay, so this will find the category and it will take the name as a parameter and a pagination for this. So we'll have a category listing. So I have some default categories that I will add into the database, like dummy categories. So right now we can see our categories table is empty. So we'll just add some dummy records here. So I'll add these records. I'll say go, and we have seen the 5 records have been inserted, and these are our records. Okay, so now let's work on the functions. Okay, we have created find by name. Okay, this the function here to get the categories. Okay, it will find all the categories. It is using the category model. Okay, now in transaction service we'll need to call this function. So we will include this classes here. We'll import this classes. Okay, and this will be a service. Okay, this will be a service, and then we'll call the category repository here. Okay, we are calling the category repository here, and we are passing it to the constructor. Then we create this function here just below this, which will retrieve all the categories based on the name, else it will find all. Okay, once we create the service, we go to the controller and add this controller data here. So if I maximize the screen, you can see that this is a controller which will have index function of categories. So slash categories, it will get the name as the parameter, size as the parameter, and the pagination controls. So I'll import the classes. So I'll import the service class here. Okay. So you can see above the service class is imported. Then the controller is imported. We'll import this class here of AutoWired. We'll import the get mapping. We'll import the request param files. We'll import the model, Spring Boot. And we'll import all these REST classes. Okay, we have all these classes here. And our controller looks good. So it will get categories. Okay. And it will use this parameters here, and it will go to the category service and get the categories. Okay. So once we do this, we have a service function, we have a repository, and we have a controller function. So next what we need to do is we need to create a view for this page. So let's go ahead and create a view under templates. So we'll create a new file and that will be HTML file called as categories. Okay. And we'll copy the same layout and make changes in the layout. We'll copy the same transaction layout and we'll make changes to the categories layout. So there was an issue when I created this file. So I'll just refactor this file, rename. It will be an HTML file. So I'll just delete this file and recreate this file here. So I'll go ahead here and create a new file. No, I'll go ahead here and create a new file that will be HTML file and it will be category. Okay. So once I create this file, I will copy the same transaction HTML here and make changes. Okay, so after making changes to this file, categories file, the file will look something like this. So I've added the tabs and the categories data. So this will be /categories. I will post this code in the on the GitHub so you can clone it and then review it yourself. So all the functionality remains the same as the transactions page, but here we are using the categories data. Okay, let's save this and let's rerun this application and see if we are getting any errors here. So reload this page and we'll say /categories here. So we are getting an error here. So, and it is a 500 error. So let's see why this error is occurring. Okay, this error is happening as we require a default constructor for our category page, for our category model. So we need to add a default constructor for Hibernate to understand it. So let's add a default constructor in the code. So if I go to the code here, and if I go to the model, so where is my model? Category model is here. So just before the parameterized constructor here, let's create a default constructor. Okay, and let's now rerun the application and we'll see if we are getting the same issue again. So let this run on port 8080 and then we'll reload the page. Okay, the port server has been started and let's reload this now. We are still getting an error. Okay, this error is happening as we have not added the HTTP request URL. So if we go ahead in a path, in a file, in the controller file, and if we have a look at the transactions controller, that we are passing a HTTP servlet request here. So we need to pass this data in our category controller as well. So I will say it, I will put a comma here and I will add this request here. And then we need to add it to the model attribute like this. So I will add it to the model attribute at the end. Okay. So it will get the last parameter, so the slug, and based on this we show the active tab. So let's reload this when I save it. And let's see if page is working. And we can see that the categories are now displaying on the screen. So we face some issues here due to the request URL. So what we would do is we would add another tab here under transaction that are categories. Okay. So even the filter would work now if I say, if I put transportation here and if I filter, so it will give me the result here. So this is not getting auto selected, so it should come here once we type anything, it should not disappear. So we'll add that, and we'll also add a tab here which will be active when the categories are selected. So if we go ahead in our code and if we go to the master layout now, okay, if we go to the master layout, so we can see in the master layout that we have the request URLs here. So if I maximize this, okay, so if I maximize this, we can see on transactions and transaction add, these links are getting active. Similarly, we'll put another link in the manage reports. So it will be under transactions, but it'll be add, it will be categories. So just below this create new transaction, we'll have categories here. So, okay, once we have categories here, we need to add the URL here, categories. And again, we need to add it here. So if category is selected, this will be active. And also, I need to add categories if this is active here. So this should be add here. Okay, and I should put a new OR here and add categories tab here. Okay, request URI. So I'll copy this, I'll paste this here, and this will be categories. So this will be active. If once categories is selected, even the transaction tab should be active. So I'll just save this and let's see if all is working fine. So if I stop and rerun, so our Tomcat server has started, and if we reload this, we're getting some error. Let's change this to this and let's see if that error goes. So if I put here categories, okay, now the transaction tab should be, now the transaction tab should not appear. Now the transaction tab should appear and it should not throw an error. So let's reload this. We have saved this. So let's restart the server now and check. If I put categories here, if I just remove this and put, and we are still facing that issue. Okay, we missed the parenthesis here. So it is a syntax error that was occurring. So let's reload this and see what happens here, if it works fine. So I have restarted the server and let's see if it works fine. So you can see the categories are selected, the category tab is selected. So if I go on transaction listing, I restarted my server, so it would take some time. So if I go to my transaction listing, transactions are getting activated. Then create new transaction is getting activated, and when I click on category, categories are getting activated. But transactions is not getting activated. So we'll resolve that. So if we go here and see, we should also have a transaction. So this is this transaction tab should be active. So we should have this. We'll copy this. And after this, let's put an OR here. And let's include this and make it categories. Okay, so if I save this and reload the application now, Tomcat server has started. So let's reload the application and we can see the transaction tab is active now. So our tabs are working fine and our listing of categories is showing up. Okay. In the next video, we'll see how to create a new category and how to edit a new category.